You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's good, everybody? It is July 23rd, Tuesday to be exact. And Rosie, I got a bone to pick off the top of the podcast today. Did you see this on social media where people were asked, was it either Fraser McLaren or Colton Orr? And I answered with Jay Rosehill. Did you like that answer?
I just saw that this morning, like coming from our own account, getting the snub. Whew, it hurts. But as long as my co-host is in my host is in my corner, I'll be all right there.
Well, we got to get in line with the powers that be that run the socials over at the Leafs Nation, because some of these polls, it's like, why would I ever want to pick between those two when I have Jay Rosehill in my life?
It's a great question, my man. A great question. Yeah, I don't know. Go back to the tape. I've gone both of them, so it is what it is. But good players. Orzi's, let's be honest, he is a heavyweight that played a long time and did his job really good, and he's got a highlight reel of super right-hand power knockout. So he probably takes her.
I think the other guy actually stole your number when he came to town, didn't he?
He did. That's why I was a little mad. I was a little mad when we went. It's like, how dare you? How dare you? But there's only so many dusty training camp numbers you can take. I think he just needed to.
38's a nice number, though. Is there any significance behind that number or no?
Not really. I was 8 before when I was like a D-man. So then I just went 38 when I kind of got to Toronto and blah, blah, blah. And then it was kind of taken in Philly. So I went 37, which I kind of like 37 a little bit more. But nonetheless, It's not like it's number 9 or 19 or something where you're valuable.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you wore the number 34, what people would feel about you.
That's a pretty greasy number for a superstar. Like
It's
usually
nice though, because I do feel over the last decade, it's changed a lot where the star players are wearing unconventional numbers, like 97 for McDavid, 98 for Connor Bedard. I understand a lot of this is birth year stuff, but I think it's kind of cool when a guy doesn't wear a conventional number.
Yeah, well, I remember when it was just 0 to 19 is kind of what you had, and then these European guys started coming into the league, and one of them would wear an 89, and people were like, what the hell is going on with it? It's so weird. Who cares? But the traditions, they go for so long, and people just kind of poo-poo wearing something a little bit higher. And now, it's totally normal. Guys like individuality, try to make something that's theirs. So you go out to the outskirts where people haven't really done it before and pick a weird number. But yeah, for Matthews, 34, that is a kind of a dirty old training camp number that you give a guy last minute kind of thing. But I like that he rocks it. It's good for him. It's because
this is going to date
Pappy,
me,
right?
but pardon me?
It's because of Bosock's Pappy, right? That's why he likes it.
I believe so.
David
There's got to be some type of correlation there. I was going to say this is going to date me, but dating back to my time playing baseball, one of the rare years we actually got to pick our numbers. You go crazy as a kid. You're like, I'm going to go number 87. I remember I had a beef with the other first baseman on the team, and this jackass had to pick 87. Or no, I wanted to be 88. It was the summer of Lindros, when Lindros signed with the Maple Leafs, and I was obviously a big-time Leafs fan. So we got asked what numbers we wanted to be, and naturally, the other jackass playing first base wanted to be number 88, so we had to fight over it. So I took 87. It was so ugly. We had 2 first basemen, one wearing 88, one wearing 87, but so be it.
Grease. I remember Lindros, man. I was in love with him in Philly. Unbelievable. And it didn't really work out in Toronto too bad. His head was already gone and everything else. Hey, but pretty neat he was there. I don't really remember it personally. I didn't follow the Leafs that much, but the fact that you were there in that era shows that you're getting up there in age, buddy.
Getting up there a bit. As mentioned, I am turning 35 in a couple weeks, so looking forward to that. But yeah, I was really, really pumped when Eric Lindros signed with the Maple Leafs. Probably 10 years too late, but still, it was a really intriguing summer for the Maple Leafs. Obviously, didn't work out. Speaking of which, speaking of working out, Austin Matthews, I guess, was spotted skating in Toronto. This has made a big story for some reason, but it's not really in my world. I just wanted to more so ask you, what do you expect? What do you want to see from Austin Matthews this season? I know there's a new head coach, but I just don't know how you respond or what your follow-up is for a 69-goal campaign, Rosie.
First of all, why is it a big that people didn't think? What is the deal with that? I don't really get it. Odd to me, but what do you expect? I guess, I mean, more of the same, obviously, with the goal scoring. He's kind of got that box checked. He's one of the best in the world at scoring goals. So obviously, you want to have a nice campaign and follow up a huge season with another one and show that I'm not streaky, I'm consistent, and I am always this good. And that would be a huge deal just to show consistency and that you can do that kind of season in and season out for a good chunk of your prime. But other factors too, like his leadership, to be able to get the team on his back, to lead by example, setups too, and getting the assists as well. Being a well-rounded player. I'd like to see him get a little bit physical, get a little bit chirpy out there, get a little bit cocky, tell the whole bench to fuck them. Like, you know what I mean? And just have that little swagger. Like, oh my God, this guy is controlling everything. He is dominant. We don't really like playing with him. I wish he was on my team, but he's kind of doing it all out there and kind of well round himself into that really competitive mode. I would like to see a step forward from Austin Matthews this summer.
My answer would be that, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think it goes without saying, Rosie, he's going to have an unbelievable regular season, barring injury yet again. He's going to put up his goals. He's going to put up his points. But for me, it comes down to the springtime. I know it's a long time coming. It's going to be a long wait until next spring, but that's when I want to see a difference from Austin Matthews. Having said that, I thought before he got hurt in the playoffs, he looked awesome. I mean, what was it, game 2 in Boston, he took over. Like, he had some moments in that series, unlike other guys that we've talked about on this podcast. But I think if you're Matthews, there's not much more you can improve upon. Leadership, sure. Getting the job done when it matters most in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But from a regular season standpoint, the guy is just an absolute behemoth. I think he does have a legitimate shot at 70 goals. Like, it is crazy to say that, but he's that good and clearly coming off a 69-goal campaign. We've been teasing a special guest on today's podcast, so let's unveil it right now, Rosie. 2024 first-round pick Ben Danford is going to drop by in about 10 minutes here.
I know. Another poll by the kids here. It's nice before the Leafs get their claws in them and say, you can't do any media unless we say you can. But no, it's exciting, man. I mean, we got Nicey on last year. It was kind of cool. And kind of got to get to know him and watched him flourish and step into the NHL. So we'll see what Ben can do too, and just pick his brain a little bit. And, another guy that grew up, I think, as a Leafs fan. So to be part of the organization now, I imagine he's pretty excited.
I would think people are excited to come on this podcast now because I do think the Leafs morning take bump is real. I'm sure you saw yesterday, Dean Evason hired by the Columbus Blue Jackets, the list of names that have been hired in the last 15 months after guesting on this podcast: Craig Berube, Claude Julien, Evason, Dave Poulin, Travis Green, Barry Trotz. I mean, I can keep going. So it's official. It's a bump, Rosie.
Hey, I love it. It's the opposite of like what is it, the football? What is the curse? The football one, or is it the hockey one too? The front of EA
I think it's the Madden
game.
cover, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Madden, the Madden curse too. Too funny.
Yeah.
Well, the LMT bump, I like it. So we'll see if we can give this kid a slingshot head start for his career.
No curse here. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. If you're watching right now, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. This opening segment is brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. I mentioned my birthday coming up in a couple weeks. I think I'm going to head down to Greta, have myself a night. They always set me up well there for a good time. Find Greta, 590 King Street West, weekly specials, live sports, over 60-plus arcade games. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. So since we last talked, and it's only fitting that we have Ben Danford on today's podcast, remember all that conversation about Wes Clark, who made that final pick with Danford? A new director of amateur scouting. It's going to be Mark Leach, coming in from the Dallas Stars organization. Spent 11 seasons with the Stars. Before that, 20 with Detroit. The resume is pretty extensive, and it's pretty damn good, Rosie.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm not going to claim to know all the different guys in the scouting world, but when you look at his resume, it's like you've had, a stranglehold on all of those years for those organizations and who they drafted and what they developed into. And I think, how many cups does he have with Detroit? A handful of them. He knows what he's doing. And I do think it takes a special guy to be good at being a scout, right? You got to look at, like, everyone can look at the stat sheet. You can go watch, yeah, he skates good. Yeah, he sure has a quick release. Like, that's great. But to look at the intangibles and the things that other people will miss, that you can find and see and say, I know that playing like that is indicative of translating into being a talented player down the road in the NHL and picking up all the little things that other people might miss. He's obviously good at that. So it's almost like you would consider him the best of the best as far as that world goes. And now we've got him on our side, our team, doing all of our, head scouting stuff and going through everybody and seeing what's what and making the final decision on these up and comers and these prospects is awesome to have, because it goes unnoticed and you kind of are unheralded doing it, because it's not something that leads to success right away. Like, you can draft a stud and it's still years until he's anything, if that. So you don't really get the pat on the back that you probably deserve, but it's very important to have guys coming down your pipeline that can facilitate, a winning strategy right off the bat while they're still on their entry level deals and whatnot. And just really important, especially in the cap era, to draft quality players and get them in your system.
Yeah, bottom line, need to find value in the draft. I think PR-wise, this is a great addition following the exit of Wes Clark to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I know a lot of people are unhappy about that, but I mentioned the extensive resume, and it's important to note that it was a scouting team with Dallas. It's not just like Mark Leach made every decision, but I mean, the track record's pretty damn impressive. Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven, Maverick Bork's going to be in the show next year, Jake Ottinger, Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Harley. The last two intrigue me because I think that's the biggest thing that the Leafs need moving forward. We have Ben Danford, who's a young defenseman on the podcast in about 5 here. But I want to see this team try to get a big fish on the back end. Easier said than done. Every team is looking for it. But imagine they draft a guy, maybe it's Danford, where they draft a guy and he turns into an absolute stud. I think it's so hard to find defensemen like that in the draft. But it really is encouraging when you look at that resume and you hear those names. And there's a reason why the Dallas Stars have been widely regarded as the best drafting team in the NHL, in the Jim Nill era.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, with defensemen especially, like these kids are like still 17 years old, and when they get drafted, and especially for a defenseman, where it's not till like 10 years later that you really kind of hit your stride in that position in your prime as a defenseman. It takes a while to develop. It's a little bit more difficult. And every time you step up a league and a level, there's more to learn and more to understand. And it's difficult position to learn. So I think especially for the defenseman, it's tougher to get a guy and say, this guy's going to be X. And when it does happen, it is special because they're hard to find. And when you get one from the ground level and you don't have to go pay out the ass to go get one that's already established, and you have one within your system that you've drafted and developed, it's pretty awesome. And it's huge for the team. And you don't have to pay those guys $10 million right off the bat, but they're replacing a guy. Like, it's just so nice if you can draft well. It brings you depth. It gives you extra money in the cap. It gives you all kinds of things. And this person inside and out, and you've, helped them along the whole way ever since the day one when you announce their name. So you got a lot riding on them as well. It's nice, and it's tougher to do. But when you start picking up big D men that are solid in the early rounds, it's nice to watch them and think, what could this guy be? And hopefully the skills development that he's going to get in the next couple of years are going to be ones that help him develop into exactly that.
And supplying the core four, if you're going to keep them, and it looks like they're going to keep them at least through next season, you need to find a way to extract value in the draft. And that's why names like Easton Cowan has come up this quickly, Fraser Minton, Matthew Nyes. They have struck gold. Like Wes Clark did a pretty sound job after the first round. And I think anytime you can find value like that in the draft, as you mentioned, it's just going to be so big for the team, especially when you're paying 4 guys that much money. John Costa made me laugh here in the chat. We get way too excited about coaches and scouts around here. I think he's so right, because we come on here as podcasters and we're like, yeah, what a great hire. Mark Leach, look at the resume. Do we truly know what he has to offer? Probably not, but you have to feel positive and optimistic about somebody who has that type of track record and resume at the very least.
Well, it's third week in July here, Johnny. So you tell me what you want to get excited about. We can only talk about Austin Matthews' goal scoring ability so much. But when you do a show like us and we're in depth as we are, you're going to go into depth over things that most people don't even notice have happened. And something like the head of scouting is a big deal. And we just talked about why, but are we going crazy and thinking the cup is ours because of it? Let's get real here.
Speak for yourself. I think the Stanley Cup is coming home to Toronto after the hiring of Mark Leach here, but certainly that's the latest development in Leafs Nation. Been very, very quiet the last couple weeks. I think we're ready to bring in today's guest. We've been teasing it off the top of the podcast. It's none other than Oshawa Generals defenseman Ben Danford. What's going on, Ben?
Not much. How are you guys?
We're fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. How have the last couple weeks been for you after what happened in Vegas there?
They've been great. I mean, it's been a crazy last month for sure, going from the combine to the draft to dev camp. But no, everything's went well, and it hasn't really sunk in yet, to be honest. So it's been crazy.
Ben, congratulations on getting to that organization. What before the draft and when you talk about the rankings and you're talking with your agent, did you pay attention? Were you a guy that was like, looking, I could slot here, I could slot there? Were the Leafs kind of on your radar as a potential team to get picked by, or did you just go and let it happen and see where the chips fell?
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned that they were quite interested in me. I talked to them a lot, especially after the season ended, combine and other places as well. And yeah, they did. They seemed very interested. I've been a Leafs fan my whole life, and thought it was really cool to go through and stuff. But I didn't want to get my hopes up too high. But it worked out really well. So.
Sure did. I was in attendance for that draft, June 28th, Sphere in Vegas. Wes Clark calls your name, 31st overall. What do you remember about that moment, Ben?
You know what? Honestly, the second he called my name, I kind of blacked out a little bit. I mean, I think my whole family was kind of in a little bit of a shock. We're from a small town, so to get drafted on the big stage, and especially in the first round, it's pretty surreal for my whole family. So I mean, yeah, I kind of blacked out going down the stairs. My legs felt maybe a little like jello. It was kind of hard to get down there, but no, it was good.
I like it. So growing up, safe to say you were a Leafs fan. What era is it that stands out to you where you really kind of got hooked and were paying attention, kind of the glory years for a guy of your age when you were watching and enjoying the Leafs the most?
Yeah, I think just growing up, going through the era of Phil Kessel, Joffrey Lupul, those kind of guys. I had my first jersey was a Phil Kessel jersey. So I went to so many Leaf games growing up. Yeah, it just the whole situation itself is it's pretty mind-boggling, to be honest. It's pretty crazy, and it's really special. So.
Hey, Ben, do you remember a player on one of those teams named Jay Rosehill?
I don't know if I do.
Say yes, say yes, say yes. No, Rosie played with Phil Kessel and Lupul on some of those teams. But Rosie, what was that experience like playing with Kessel?
Well, I was up in the press box more often than not, so don't worry about it, Ben. But no, Phil's one of a kind, man. He was a special player. He always blows everyone's mind that he could be so fast on his feet, have such a quick release, but just when you talk to him and look at him, he just doesn't look like a premier athlete, and it just doesn't make sense where the speed comes from. But a talented player, no doubt.
Yeah. So Ben, I was going to ask you too, obviously, as somebody who grew up a Leafs fan, just that opportunity, that moment, but more so like what you feel you can bring to the organization, to the team. For those unfamiliar with you, how would you characterize your game first and foremost?
I'm just a 200-foot player. I mean, I'm someone who's a defense first type of guy. I feel like I have a lot of offensive upside, and with my skating ability and hockey IQ, I feel like I have some more levels to unlock there. Yeah, I'm just a guy that's I feel like to think of myself as a gamer. Someone who do anything for the team to win.
So what's your plan going forward? What would be a successful season to you coming up, and where do you see yourself taking strides as far as getting to camp and all those things with the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to my first training camp, obviously. Yeah, obviously you want to stay around for as long as you can. Take it all in. Get to be around all those pros for as long as you can, obviously, just because they're there for a reason. Feed off them and learn from them. So I think that'll be really beneficial for me. Just going into the season, I think we're gonna have a really strong team in Oshawa. So I think we're all, our whole team's pretty, excited. We had a good run last year, and I think we're hungry for more this year. And I just, want to help I think, when people say team success leads to individual success, that's, I think that is really true. So I'm just looking forward to a great year with my team, and we obviously want to win it all. So.
No, that's cool. I want to get to Oshawa, but first and foremost, I want to ask you about, players that you cater your game after or sort of pattern your game after. Jake Muzzin, development camp. What was that experience like working closely with a guy like Muzzin?
Yeah, it was super cool. He's he's a guy that I watched obviously when I not too many years ago when he was on the Leafs, and he's a great player, and to learn from him. I was blocking shots from him, so that was pretty cool and stuff. And he's just a great mentor, and I just can't wait to keep feeding off him. So it should be good.
And as far as some new additions on the back end for the Leafs, when you get to camp, who are you going to be paying attention to and watching? Is it going to be Tanev or Oliver Ekman-Larsson has got some experience, obviously. Maybe pick Morgan Riley's brain a little bit. Who do you like to to get in there with and maybe learn from?
Yeah, like I feel like the back end they have some great defenders, and I think I'd like to feed off a lot of them, obviously, all of them. They're there for a reason and stuff. So, one guy that I like to compare myself during, the whole draft process was Tanev, actually. There's a guy who can skate well and break out the puck and can block a lot of shots and, play that style of game. So, so it should be cool to meet, a guy that you kind of compare yourself through your draft process. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Ben, I'd mentioned the Oshawa Generals. I thought it was really cool, the video the Leafs put out after you drafted, and you're like, wow, I just got texted by John Tavares. How cool was that, knowing that first and foremost, JT's the captain of the Maple Leafs, but also the history, the rich history of John Tavares with the organization you play for in the OHL?
Yeah, that connection of both playing for Oshawa, such one of the best organizations in junior hockey. It's pretty cool. So, to me, to get a text from a guy like that, such a high character guy and such a, he's such a great player, obviously. So, it meant a lot to, get a text from a guy.
Ben, awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much for doing this today. Once again, congratulations, and we'll talk down the road, okay?
Awesome.
Our
Thanks
pleasure.
a lot, guys.
That is Ben Danford, who went obviously in the first round of the Maple Leafs here at the draft at the Sphere. What an amazing sight. Really, really cool moment for him and his family. Could only wonder what it's like when you're actually a Leafs fan and then you're drafted by the Maple Leafs. Eh, Rosie?
Yeah, you do wonder what they think. Is there more nerves involved? Is it more holy shit, or is it more like jubilation and oh my gosh, and that couldn't have gone better? Like, I think depending on what your mindset is, where your confidence level is, it could be a good thing or maybe a detriment to you. I mean, there are guys that would rather just go to Phoenix where nobody's watching and just quietly go about your business, try to get better, try to get into the league and everything else. It'll be, I don't know if it'll be more difficult to do, and if that's extra pressure, or I know that guys that are from here and play for Toronto or go and play in Toronto when they're from the area, it's just a shit show of people trying to get tickets from you. Can you meet up with me? Can you meet my daughter? Can you come see this kid? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's like overwhelming. So you got to have the mindset to balance that and to understand that that's coming. But no doubt about it, there's also massive positives of all the excitement and the ability to live your dream and put on that jersey. The one that you cheered for so long is obviously huge for a lot of guys.
It really shows our age too. When you start having prospects on, you ask them like who they idolize growing up, and he says Phil Kessel, and then like you played with Kessel, and like I remember Kessel at his core. I remember the trade with the Boston Bruins. It's like it's wild to me, man.
I know, but then you're looking like, okay, well, when would he have been watching? He's like 18 years old. It's like, oh God, no wonder he doesn't, like, let's get real.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember much at 5 years old. So you can only go back so far. And that's what it was with these young kids. Yes, you are definitely getting old.
Yeah, we like, I mean, we started having prospects on, and they talk about how they've watched Austin Matthews and like Mitch Marner and guys like that. It's pretty surreal, but I think it's so unique and just shows you maybe the era of Maple Leafs hockey with the due respect. I know you were on those teams, but it was a transition period for the Maple Leafs, and Phil Kessel was the star player on the team for a long period of time. So thankful of Ben Danford for making some time today. I think it's always difficult when you're a young prospect, especially in the Maple Leafs organization, not to mention the position he plays, right? I think right away in camp, There's going to be this expectation that he's already knocking on the door. I think with a guy like Danford, probably going to take a bit of time. But I think there's opportunity, there's potential, and there's need, most specifically on the back end for a guy of his ilk and his type. And there's a reason why they drafted him.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think a guy like him would be someone you'd try to, shove into the league a little bit too early, right? I think every little stepping stone he can get and all the little milestones he can check off will benefit him tremendously. You're going to get to camp, like he said, watch what all the pros do, be around the big show, see the media, kind of get a taste for what it's like. Every little on ice session and talking with the coaches and the D coach and learning this and that. And, if he's smart, he would, jump up to a guy in the line and say, hey, how do you like to do this? Do you like to keep yourself open, or do you widen your hips over here? How do you do that first step? Or what do you think's best? Do I commit this situation or do I back off? And just pick those guys' brains a little bit. You're there for a few weeks or whatever it is. Doesn't really matter. Soak up as much as you can. Go back to Oshawa. Like he says, wants to win a championship, be the big stud, be the big confident guy, exponentially get better in that league, then give it another shot the next year and say, all right, let's take everything I've learned in that 12 months and see how much better it's made me, and just keep chipping away at those little milestones until hopefully down the road, you're going to say, this guy has got nowhere to play but here. This guy is ready. This guy needs to be on our team. That's where you want to get to sooner than later. But again, no sense in rushing a kid of that age.
Gary K writes in, does his PR give you a time cutoff? You cut a lot of guests off really, really abruptly. Well, Gary, if you want to watch 25-minute interviews, maybe find another podcast. I think 10 minutes is a great buffer zone. It's a great mark. And yeah,
I think his audio is a little weird for me. So you were jumping in before he was done talking for me, but I think you've got the real feed over there. So maybe he's talking about that, or maybe he just likes to complain.
I mean, to be fair, your connection's not great. It's summer, folks, so stick with us. I think it was both sides. But anyways, I mean, Gary wants long interviews. He wants long form interviews. Maybe he has to listen to your other podcast.
Go to Department of Discipline with hockeyfights.com. We've got hour-long bangers for you there, Gary.
What do you guys got this week, man? Promote that. Why not?
We've done Cam Jansen and Trevor Gillies. We've got Brant Myers coming up. We just did, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his mind. He just wrote a crazy book. I can't believe I'm blanking right now. It makes me mad. But yeah, go check it out at Department of Discipline on hockeyfights.com platform. And yeah, we got a longer form podcast if that's what you're looking for.
Smashed it. Love it. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. This won't be abrupt. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I think we should talk about the rookie crop and the expectation for the Calder Trophy. I think the sexy favorite, the sexy name is going to be Matvei Michkov, who's coming over from Russia to play for the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm just always careful when it comes to young players and John Tortorella. So I'm going to put my money on Logan Stankoven of the Dallas Stars to win the Calder Trophy and not Matvei Michkov. I think the race is wide open. I think Maverick Bourque could be in that conversation too, but I don't think it's going to be Michkov, just more so because of John Tortorella. You think Torts is going to come out there and give this guy first-line minutes right away? I don't see that.
Interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I was on NHL radio yesterday. We were talking about that. Like, is he still of the ilk of a guy who could be too harsh on a young kid coming over? A lot of adjustments for that, or has John Tortorella adapted to the new game and the new players in the new league enough to say, "Oh, now you're valuable," and bringing guys over and getting them to be a pro? I don't know what his patience level is. Obviously, not very long with the media. And that's fine, but I think he's a different guy with his players. And I've been to lots of training camps with John Tortorella. I've been in meetings with him. Was in his organization when I was very young. Yeah, he's intimidating, and yeah, he's changed since then. He doesn't put up with a lot of bullshit, but he is honest and he is fair. So if you go and get on the same page with him and say, hey, look, you don't have to worry about me. I'm going to be here to work. I'm going to be here to get better. I'm 100% committed to this team. If he knows that, he will allow you to grow and get the most out of you. So we will see where it goes with a guy like him. Like, you didn't touch Macklin Celebrini either, could be a front runner if he has a big year. We will see with it, but yeah, it's always interesting to have an old school coach who's still in the league and just try to figure out exactly how adapted he is to these new young players, because they aren't getting any older. They're getting younger and younger and more removed from the guys that he's used to coaching back in the day.
Yeah, Torts has an expiry date. That's all I'll say. I don't know when that time's coming with Philadelphia, but as you astutely brought up with San Jose, Will Smith is another name to watch there. And I think it's free and easy when there's no expectation for you to win. So certainly in San Jose, you look at Celebrini, you look at Will Smith. I mean, there's no indication just yet if Celebrini's going to start the year or go back to school. But Michkov is getting a lot of love, understandably so, and a bit surprising in coming over to Canada, or I should say North America, quicker than expected. I think we were projecting maybe 2026 getting out of his KHL deal, but he's here, and I think he's being announced to the media coming up tomorrow. So we will listen to the chat moving forward. I know Tammy wrote in. I agree 10 minutes is a bit too short on an interview. I think 15 minutes is a sweet spot. We do listen to you guys on a daily basis. We love what you have to say and chime in the chat. So I think part of the issue today was just the connection. I was just so over it by the end. I'm like, this is lagging like crazy, and the responses are 5 minutes after I've asked my questions. So we'll work on the tech moving forward. Again, we're appreciative of everybody here on the show being with us. It's mid-July, late July, and there's a bunch of you in the chat right now watching live, so really, really appreciate that. What's coming up later on this week, Rosie? What have you been up to, buddy?
We'll see, man. Just actually been battling a bad back here and trying to look at some specialists and get her figured out. So that's kind of the negative, but on the positive, hot summer so far. We had an ugly June, but now it's just blazing hot everywhere you go, and just trying to enjoy it with the young family, buddy. Getting ready for to go full tilt again here in the fall.
It's been really, really weird weather-wise in Toronto now. It's humid again. There was a flood last week. We just don't know what we're going to get on a daily basis. But yeah, we're trucking forward and moving onwards to the month of August. So we're going to bid you farewell for today's edition. Again, we're coming at you twice a week for the foreseeable future here in the summer. We'll be back on Thursday. Just check our socials and we'll let you know what time we're going to start the podcast on Thursday. Maybe figure out some tech issues as well. So thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Also, Ben Danford, today's guest. Very, very appreciative of his time. Looking forward to seeing him in training camp. Looking forward to seeing him potentially on the blue line for the Maple Leafs in the maybe not too distant future. And most specifically next year with the Oshawa Generals. So thank you to producer Vic. Thanks to Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.